Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zolotech, and this past week has had a ton of news, and I didn't have a news update the previous week, so there's a lot to go over. This is your news update for the week of May 23rd, 2022. And the first thing is, Tim Cook has won the most influential person on Time magazine. You can see here, out of the Time 100, Tim Cook and Lauren Powell Jobs actually wrote part of the piece, so that's something that they just updated today, and if you want to check it out, it's available at time.com or one of the Time magazines. Apple discontinued the iPod Touch or iPod a couple weeks ago, and I never did anything as far as that goes, but just wanted to share this was my first iPod. This is actually the 4th generation iPod, 40 gigabytes, and it still works. So if I turn it on here, you'll see the battery's really low and it probably could use a replacement, but it still works just fine. Go into music, go to artists, whatever you want, and the click wheel still works great. It still has all of the music on here that worked, and occasionally it doesn't work properly because it has a hard drive. The hard drive will click, and something you're never supposed to do with hard drives is smack them against something, but that fixes this every single time. So if you just slap this against your hand, it frees up the read head on the hard drive and it actually works. And it's worked like that for many, many years. So this works great. Unfortunately, Apple has discontinued the iPod, maybe paving the way for a new OS. Apple Music prices have increased for students in many countries, going up from $1.49 per month to $1.99 per month. So you get a 25% increase, and while still very reasonable, it is an increase likely due to inflation and other factors. Apple hasn't said specifically why, they've just increased the price. Also, Apple continues to sell millions of iPhones, and shipments were up almost 20% in the first quarter of 2022, according to Canalys. That's compared with 2021, so there's still huge interest in iPhone and a huge amount of people still buying them, whether you're coming from an iPhone 7, iPhone 10, 12, even an iPhone 12 Pro to a 13 Pro. It looks like many people are buying them. Apple doesn't report specific numbers, but it looks like shipments overall were up. Now, the European Union is still working to change the way Apple operates with developers. There's been some concern that they haven't opened up the App Store enough and that they need to open this up even more. So it looks like they're working to change that to force Apple to give developers access to not just different app stores or maybe side-loading apps, but all hardware and software features of the device, meaning Face ID and much more, such as iMessage, FaceTime, and more. So that could really be something that changes the way iPhone operates in the next few years if they're allowed to do that, but right now this is just something they're working on. Also, the US, UK, Australia, Japan, and South Korea are looking closer at forcing Apple to open its ecosystem more as well. So we may see some big changes in the next few years, although I'm curious what you think. Should this be something Apple is made to do, or should they be allowed to keep everything closed even though they sell a huge amount of phones? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Apple is reportedly in talks with EA to apparently acquire them, so they may be looking to purchase EA. Recently, Microsoft bought Activision, and now EA may be the last one left that Apple could grab and then really push them to use things such as Apple Arcade, or maybe even future devices, maybe gaming devices, or maybe to do with that AR/VR headset that we're expecting later on. So maybe some good things could come out of that, but either way, it looks like big companies are grabbing game companies, and I really miss the days when they were a bit more independent and a little more creative. But maybe we'll see some changes very soon with that. Now, if you use T-Mobile like I do, but you use an eSIM, I actually use a physical SIM in the side of the phone. If you use an eSIM, there's been reports of problems where it would deactivate iMessage and FaceTime. Now, this has been responded to by T-Mobile and Apple. Mark Gurman first reported this, and apparently they're working on it. So this is a reason we could see a future version of iOS very soon. We'll talk about that in a moment. But if you have T-Mobile and you're having a problem where it's deactivating iMessage and also FaceTime and maybe some other things, if you get a physical SIM, that usually fixes the problem, but if you have an eSIM, that seems to be an ongoing issue, even with the latest version of iOS. Apple's chipset manufacturer, TSMC, who makes the chipset in the iPhone, the iPad, and the new Apple Silicon Macs, is looking to build another factory in Singapore to help tackle future demands. So right now, there's a lot of different issues going around the world with the supply chain, and TSMC is looking to build new factories there in the United States as well. So we could see a big supply chain shift over the next 5 years or so. Apple's CEO, Tim Cook, also recently met with the Prime Minister of Vietnam to talk about manufacturing there as well. So diversifying spreading that manufacturing around the world. We already have iPhone 13 being manufactured in India and also in South America, so we could see this spread all throughout the US as well as other places around the world. Now, Apple this week introduced new IT training courses and certifications. You can see that on training.apple.com. You can take courses online to be certified and then choose the path you want to go. IT training, as you can see here, and you can be trained here completely online, prepare for the exam, take the exam, and get certified as well. So this is something they launched. They've had these programs for a while, but now they've been updated and all online. So you can do everything from device support to deployment and management and much more. So you have all of that information here. You can check it out, and I'll leave a link for it in the description below. Now, when I was talking about future iOS versions, with those problems with T-Mobile, if they can't fix it on their end and it's not something that can be done remotely, we could expect a new version of iOS very soon to address that and maybe some additional security issues. So it's possible we could see an iOS 15.5.1 this week, something to address some of those issues. And I've heard from some of you that said they even had similar issues on AT&T, where the eSIM would deactivate iMessage and FaceTime, and they weren't able to fix it. A physical SIM card would fix that. So it's possible we see something to address that. It seems like with these latest updates, the modem updates with cellular data in general have seemed to be a little less than reliable. Sometimes switching between different types such as 4G and 5G are problematic, and it just is an ongoing issue. Hopefully Apple resolves this very, very soon. Now, of course, if you've been following along, we had a ton of releases this past week as well. iOS 15.5, as well as iPad, Mac, TV, HomePod OS, and watchOS updates. And then they also pushed out some beta updates as well with 15.6 and iPad OS 15.6 and all the next versions that are currently out. So we could see a beta as soon as this week, but usually with early betas, it's unlikely that we see them every week. Usually we'll see them the following week. So maybe on the 30th or 31st or the 1st of June, we'll get a new beta 2 for iOS 15.6. But again, Apple can change this up. And then, of course, they're getting ready for iOS 16. So iOS 16 is expected on June 6th. We'll see that at WWDC. And on June 6th, we can expect iOS 16 beta 1. Now, this is expected to be a major update and have big updates to apps as well, according to Mark Gurman. So we should see some huge updates with iOS 16. And I've said this in a few different videos where I think Apple's getting ready to do that, as we've had pretty sparse updates with iOS 15 lately. So maybe they're just working on the core elements of iOS and then getting ready for big updates with iOS 15. Not a full system redesign, but some major changes with interactions, according to Mark Gurman, meaning maybe a new control center or new interactions throughout. So we can expect that on June 6th. However, Mark Gurman has also said that the first betas of iOS 16 are quite buggy, and this is typical every single year, and that the public beta would not be available until maybe July with beta 3. Now, we've seen delayed betas before with iOS 13. So with iOS 13, Apple released the first developer beta on June 4th, 2019. iOS 13 beta 2 was released to developers on June 18th, 2019, and the first iOS 13 public beta was released on June 24th. So they've delayed this before a little bit between beta 2 and beta 3. So we could see a similar scenario here if it's overly buggy. I typically don't recommend installing the first version of the next major iOS update until maybe beta 2 or beta 3 anyway, till Apple works out many of the major issues with it. So I'd really hold off if you were looking forward to that, but we should see all of the different features and everything with that very soon. It's only 2 weeks away or so at this point, so I'm looking forward to that, as many of you are as well. Now, also, watchOS 9 is expected to get some major updates as well. It's also said to be getting a big update with possible satellite connectivity coming to Series 8 Apple Watches. So that's possibly a feature of the new Apple Watch with some of the antennas in here. Also, new sleep tracking features, new women's health features, more updated watch faces, as we don't have very many right now. We could see a bunch of those, a new low power mode like we have on the iPhone, but with advanced features, and then also updated afibrillation detection. So if you have a watch that can check for AFib, that's something that may be in the new one as well. So we should see that along with some surprise features also. This past week, Duan Rui on Twitter showed the first cases of the iPhone 14 to give us an idea of the camera size compared to the 4 different models. iPhone 14 Pro Max, iPhone 14 Max, or maybe it will be called iPhone 14 Plus, iPhone 14 Pro, and iPhone 14. You can see the overall layout, There's no longer an iPhone 14 mini, as many have predicted before, and you'll see what it looks like here. So that's what we can expect with the next version of iPhone. They're just cases, and they give us the size and help case manufacturers determine what size to make their next cases as well, so they can get ahead of it and have them ready once the iPhone 14 launches in September. The iPhone 14 camera is expected to get a big update this time around, where it's going to cost at least 3 times more according to the supply chain. So it should get a major update with some better autofocus and some additional features. That's one of the areas Apple has been lacking a little bit compared to others, and I think it's due for a major update with center stage and maybe no longer a notch like we've been seeing as well. Kuo-Ming Chi this week said Apple is still working on a folding iPhone, but investigating a new color e-ink display technology. Now, e-ink, if you're not familiar with it, is used in the Amazon Kindle and some other devices, and once it's changed to what you see on the display, it doesn't use power anymore. So a color version of that, maybe for an external display on a folding iPhone, makes a lot of sense. It could show you the time, update to that, and once the time is displayed, or maybe notifications, it doesn't use any additional power. They're very low power, and that could add for some additional battery life compared to what you get on maybe a Samsung Fold, where they have multiple displays that use a lot of power, and they don't get the greatest battery life. So it looks like Apple's looking into this. Now, Apple before made airport devices. Some of the best routers that I've used, I used them for years, and then they sort of got outdated. This week, a new FCC filing shows Apple is working on releasing a network adapter of some sort that has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, NFC, and USB-C. So that would have internal storage as well, and RAM and firmware running 19F47, which was an early build of iOS 15.5. So they use iOS 15 on the new Studio display. They could use it in a new airport router. So that makes a lot of sense, having a new router. Eero came along and then Amazon bought them, and they're the most similar to what Airport was, and I really liked the Airport devices. Set them up and just use it. There was not much to them, and they handled it itself. So maybe we'll see that at WWDC or very soon, since there was an FCC filing. Now we're hearing again that the next Apple Watch Series 8 is going to be that squared-off design we thought the Series 7 was. Now it's said that the Series 7 at the last minute was changed and just given that bigger display, but it looks like the upcoming Series 8 may finally get that squared-off design again, but we'll have to wait and see. And I'm not holding my breath, as leakers were very wrong about this last time, but a redesign of some sort seems to be a nice move and something I would welcome, as it's been the same design with just larger and larger screens for quite some time. So we could see something like that in the near future. Kuo also said this week that Apple is working on a new HomePod. Now we've heard this from Mark Gurman before, that we would have a new HomePod maybe in late 2022 or early 2023. The design and updates are unknown, and if it's a HomePod or HomePod mini size, that's also still unknown. But Mark Gurman previously said that Apple's working on a new HomePod that's in between the size of the mini and the regular original HomePod. Since Apple discontinued the original HomePod, there definitely is reason that we could see more and Apple expand this. I personally would like them to give us an option to use these as surround sound speakers, maybe a Dolby Atmos setup on what we have with Apple TV. Maybe introduce a subwoofer and a full system that way. That's something I would welcome, but so far it doesn't look like Apple's doing that, and we could just have a new HomePod update. But that could be as soon as the end of this year. Now with the iPad Pro, we've had this mini LED display that's quite incredible for quite some time. According to analyst Ross Young, Apple is planning to launch a new 27-inch monitor with a mini LED display in October. Originally, it was supposed to be earlier, but was delayed due to lockdowns that are happening in China, hampering the supply chain. So this is something we could see very soon. It looks very much like the Studio display has internals designed for a more impressive display than what they have in it, than just a 5K. It has fans and everything else, and it makes more sense for it to have a mini LED, and maybe that's just something Apple couldn't supply, so they came out with the Studio display. Either way, we could expect that. Hopefully in October. Ross Young has a pretty good track record that way. This week we've heard a lot about Apple's upcoming AR or VR headset. Mark Gurman at Bloomberg said that Apple's board members have been shown the upcoming headset, and this would mean it's near completion and could be shown as soon as WWDC. It's expected in late 2022 or early 2023, but Apple could show it as soon as WWDC if they want to get developers started developing games for it and maybe checking out the new Reality OS. Wayne Ma from The Information revealed more details about it as well and challenges Apple had with the upcoming headset. He said it has 14 cameras to track faces and expressions for avatars and more, and apparently Johnny Ive is still involved in designs from ergonomics to battery placement. The initial headset will not be focused on gaming, however, and it's said to use hand gestures instead of the controls that we have on different Meta devices or maybe Vive devices or whatever else you're using for headsets. Again, it's also expected to use Apple's upcoming M2 chipset, so I wouldn't expect it as soon as maybe September, but we could see it at the end of the year or early next year, and many people still suspect it around $3,000. And so that's everything over the past couple of weeks for the news. Tons of different things. Of course, I'm looking forward to iOS 16 the most right now, since it's just 2 weeks away. Let me know what you're looking most forward to, whether it be iOS or different hardware, in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.